Hey guys, we're getting ready to go into the Brand Storytelling Conference here at Sundance, and let me tell you what, I couldn't be more excited to be at a show ever. What we're getting ready to hear about is how brands are integrating inside of their content. What I can tell you 100% certainty is the land of interruptive media and interruptive content is changing every day. And the more you as a brand start to activate and the more you start to tell your brand story, you will absolutely get better engagement. We've seen it with the companies we work with for years and years and years. And there is a definite performance moment that we see. Yes, I'm not telling you to stop doing the top funnel stuff that's driving your direct performance sales. I'm not telling you to stop that trigger that's causing it. But I do want you to start thinking about how you're looking at measurement of your product, right? And measurement of the success of your campaigns and measurement of the success of how you're growing your business. Because if you do it the right way, yes, you're gonna have performance coming over the top and that measured performance and the metrics we're all looking for. What's my ROI? What's my MER? What's my efficiency? How much revenue am I driving? What's my profitability? All those things are important. But if you build an organic content model behind it, you can lower your cost of acquisition. I promise you can do this. I know it works. I've done it 100 times. And all the guys at this show right here, they say the same message that we say at Blue Order. We believe that you have a change coming in the market. And if you're not starting to build your brand story now, if you haven't already started to tell your brand story, you're missing it. You need to tell it in authentic ways so your consumers start to engage and believe in your brand. That's what this is about. That's what this show's about. And I could be more excited to be sitting here in the ice freezing cold of Park City, Utah. Great show. Looking forward to diving in and meeting more of the players that we have here. Can't wait to show you more.
That this room is filled with some of the smartest and most creative people in the world. And the thread that ties us all together is that we see that there's a revolution that's taking place. Great brands are now built by empowering audiences, by creating great content that inspires, educates, and informs, content that doesn't just help acquire customers, but actually build an army of brand champions. But when we get around the bar and everybody's had a drink or two, you quickly hear the same story, the same question, which is, how do we make sure that our brand stories get funded? Here's the short answer. Brand stories get funded by driving business growth. Period, done, end of story.
Before we go any further, I just want to take a minute to just note that there's so many different ways you can integrate brands and get the brand voice in an authentic way. I mean, and then you get deep experiences like what North Face is doing, where, I mean, it's just massive in scale, the filmmaking, but it's also founded in an emotional connection to the athletes that they're covering, or even the humorous, when you start to get out to something like what's happening with Dramamine and the last barf bag. But all of those are of incredible interest. Here's a couple examples that I think will give you some insight as to what's going on in the brand storytelling world.
Sometimes you lose control for a moment, and the fear that takes over your body is the most intense feeling that I've ever felt. I don't really want to feel that fear tomorrow.
When we look at this evolution of projects that brands are putting out, can you tell that the brands cared? I think it's our responsibility to take it to that next level so that no matter who is watching this film, there's something that you can take away.
That little sample it kind of gives you the idea of how big you can go with one of these with brand integration, right? This is North Face athletes doing a very extreme thing in an unbelievable filmmaking expedition, right? That's deep commitment to brand and deep commitment to telling a story that's going to be meaningful to viewers. And what you don't see in that little clip is the underlying storytelling that one of those athletes, his wife had passed away on a previous expedition, and this is really the first one he's out without her. So there's a lot of deeper emotion going on in there that makes the storytelling so incredible, and why their victory of getting to the top and skiing down is amazing. Now, as we flip to the other end of the spectrum, this next piece is a little sample of the last barf bag. I mean, this is a story about barf bag collectors. It's almost a mockumentary feel, but it's not a mockumentary. It's real. Take a look.
We've noticed for a while that quality barf bags are getting harder to find. Your product works well, but we wonder if it maybe works a little too well. If people aren't barfing, they aren't using barf bags. To us, it's always been more than just a barf bag. Like Dramamine, it's a monument to American ingenuity and problem solving. And it's been a wonderful way to meet lifelong friends. Reach out anytime if you'd like to chat. Sincerely, Bruce Kelly, Barf Bag Collector. Wow.
You know, brands need to just kind of start doing it. Like, there's a big, like, how do you do it? What's the right way? What's the perfect formula? And we didn't have it all figured out when we started this film. None of us, not the agency, not the brand. You just gotta take that leap of faith and do it.
How do you get the brand to continue to commit to this type of organic content and this type of storytelling over time?
Well, it's not a transactional kind of filmmaking, which a lot of the traditional commercial is actually very transactional. It's like, thanks, here, shoot this for us and go away. Thank you very much. You did a great job. But when you do something like this, you interact a lot more. You really build a bond and a trust and a creative way of working together that then you can step to the next one and the next one, even if it's a totally different topic.
There's a level of on everyone's part of like trusting each other and knowing that the trust was sort of integral to making the magic happen.
You know, from the production side, from the directorial side, you know, that's a part of the pie that we don't see. So that's where the agency partners need to be tracking that and need to have been in this game, as you're talking, for a while, to have that data of several years on other brands to show the next brand how it works.
Great film, man. You guys
Thank
made me
you
laugh.
so much. Yeah.
It was so good. You made me laugh so many times.
I love it.
I know, it's always good to hear the,
Yeah,
to hear
it was
the
great
first
to
laugh.
hear those
You know,
giggles.
okay, they're gonna like it.
And it was
Yeah.
perfectly integrated.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you deserve the
Thank
award.
you.
What data and measurements are you using to gauge whether your brand stories are working or not working, and how do you use that to optimize? And in general, how important is data when you're talking about some of the brand storytelling, particularly if it's upper funnel?
For us, what we look at is a lot of metrics. We look at our brand metrics to see the impact campaigns have and different areas, and even title releases. We look at conversion and see what kind of impact is there. We look at just the cultural relevance for the campaign, but we are looking across the spectrum, and we're ensuring that it's brand health, it's conversion, it's cultural relevancy. A lot of it is important. It's not just one metric. And the three core things that we track are awareness, consideration, and brand love. And we look at that across emerging marketplaces and established marketplaces.
What do you tell the CMOs to understand the investment in brand content is absolutely going to pay you back?
There's two big components to it. There's the macro and the micro. From a macro perspective, the number one most powerful asset that any corporation owns is a brand. We are now exposed to more information than we could ever possibly manage. I mean, you've seen the data. You get exposed to 5,000, maybe even 10,000 branded messages every day. We don't process it. We know that 85% of TV ads are completely not memorable. The vast majority of people go out of their way to avoid ads. So what is a brand? A brand is a cognitive shortcut. It breaks through all of that noise, all of the cacophony, all of that messaging, and tells us what we need to know. Do I care about this brand? Do I understand what they believe in? Does it match my values? And most importantly, let's be honest, do they have products that I actually want to buy? You could take a story that tells a brand metric, or it's emotional, right? You try to get people to believe in your brand and love your brand, but you're not actually saying click here and buy now. But once you show that ad or that piece of content and they're exposed to it, on the back end you can track the data and say, okay, we know they care about the brand. Then you can give them another piece of the story about an RTB, a reason to believe in the brand, your value proposition, continue to expand upon that story. Eventually though, you can also say, hey man, why don't you check out this product? Why don't you click here and buy now? So what you're doing is actually telling a sequential story in that custom audience where you've got the big brand story, very emotional, and later you've got a very functional product story. And if you try to forget the emotional part and just go straight to the functional, it really doesn't work, right? Because there's so many messages that are saying, click here, buy now, $10 off, that type of thing. You have to use that sequential story.
So, tens of millions of people start their television viewing experience from here. It's big, it's visual. We loaded it up with a lot of the brand content that's been on here, but It's like when you turn on Netflix and how it almost automatically goes into content now and starts playing. The content can be teased there, and the brand can be attributed in a really interesting, like a passive way. It's still about the content. And that brings us to the other piece of it. So the data that we have for these things. So Vizio has 24 million televisions, and we're probably north of 30 million all across the US. But 24 million of them are collecting second-by-second screen data known as ACR technology, automated content recognition. So that means the glass knows what content is played. But we know who's watching, how long they're spending, the things that the filmmakers and the people who poured their passion and heart and soul into these projects want to know, how is it resonating? And then the other side of the house for the media teams are like, well, how is this moving product off the shelf? How is this building the brand? So I contest that there's two parts of our brain. There's content that I choose to engage with because I'm passionate about that, like a North Face film, or I'm curious about it, and the brand was passively part of it. And there's real value in that that's been hard to prove for a long time. That's passive attention. And then there's the other side, which is your 15s and your 30s and your standard commercial, which generally speaking hijack our attention and get in the way of what we're trying to see. And there's value in that. There's a whole ecosystem built around that. There is now a way to measure these two things. When you put a piece of content up on this home screen, we know this household, this television saw that content, and then we can measure and retarget them with the 15 or 30. So the media folks can go, okay, now we can measure it, and we have early studies that are starting to show that the impact of those two things together and the way that it mixes in our brains in ways that we don't understand is much greater than any of those individual tactics together.
The important thing is storytellers and also with brands to know that you can make a long form piece like this where you can advertise around it and it feels authentic, or you can integrate the brand and feel authentic as well. I think it's just conversations up front just to make sure that we're hitting both what the brand wants and the authenticity of the story, because at the end of the day, the audience will know, right? And so ultimately, if you're not hitting the authenticity, then you're not going to get the return. But I think it's all doable if you have conversations up front.
Oh boy, so the first couple days of brand storytelling are pretty incredible. But one of the big factors that I've seen that have been, kind of causing some of the disruption was how brands are engaging with creators, right? And I'm really excited to see what's coming up in today's sessions with the creators that are out there, because they've brought together folks from YouTube, folks from some of the best creators in the world, to say, how is this changing the way brands integrate with content? And it's a lot of what's happened in the online space and the creator space that's forcing brands to take a look at it differently, and it's forcing networks and content distributors to look at it differently. So super excited to meet some of the incredible influencers and some of the incredible creators that are out there, and these folks that are really changing the way that viewers engage with content.
We have amazing programming here for you guys today. We're gonna hear from creators themselves about how they can work with brands and really help tell your story. We're gonna meet brands that are formed by creators and see how they approach storytelling as advertising from day one. We're gonna meet creators who have crossed over, who started their careers on social and now are making films, making TV shows. And we're meeting creators who are building larger media empires to help further brand storytelling.
And with that, I kind of want to kick us off, right?
Yep.
Are you all ready to get started? Let's do it.
I think one of the misconceptions that I've seen when speaking with CMOs and people from brands is they treat us all like we are influencers. I think some people have a hard time understanding the difference between an influencer and a creator. When they're coming up with creative and working with agencies, influencer marketing is at the very bottom. And they loop us all in together, I find, and they don't have a great definition of what we are or understanding. And the reality is, we are becoming production companies and programmers who actually do have teams, and we are more like production companies that, although we have the distribution and we are the talent, we also are programming and know what's coming out in Q4. We're not all like that, but a lot of us are becoming like that. I think, if a brand were to work with a Hot Ones, I don't think they would consider Hot Ones influencer marketing. But a lot of us are a lot more like Hot Ones than you would think, right? Like, we are working with mainstream talent, we have showrunners, we have infrastructures to handle production, and we're capable of a lot more than just, hey, talk about this for 60 to 90 seconds. And I think if I could urge you to take one thing away here, it's just as you're looking at creators to work with, really look at their body of work over a long period of time and the type of brand that they're building. And taking away the human for a second and looking at them as a brand actually and seeing like, is this a brand that is strong that you want to get involved with? Views are important, but I would really try and focus on brand and understand like, what are the brand metrics and values that matter to your brand and making sure you're aligned.
How do you balance maintaining your unique voice as content creators when you collaborate with brands and helping them meet their goals?
And so it really is all about authenticity. I think if you just step back and you look at it and you say, okay, is this creator doing what they do best, and were they able to do that in this video? And did we give them the flexibility to do that? But also, obviously, you need to get your end of the bargain out of it. So did we get our message across, or enough of our message across? Then I think that's where you find that perfect sort of intersection.
As a brand, are the marketers watching the creator's content? Do they like the content? Do they see a way that it can fit in? But on the flip side of that, as a creator, do you foresee yourself using this brand or really having like an easy time, like integrating it in a fun way, in a way that will make sense to your viewers? So we're trying to make this process easier here at YouTube, where we have a platform called Brand Connect, and it's a way for brands to actually reach out to creators, and you can see all of the tools and insights related to the creators' insights. So if you want to see all the different types of creators you can work with, you can see their audience insights, how many subscribers they have, and just everything related to that. And I think that's like the very first step in like the creative brief, is finding the right match and seeing if there could be a partnership there.
The way to know if you're impactful is if anyone is making content about it. Whether or not they're paid in a branded capacity to do it. I see other people nodding, but like I'm guessing a lot of people here, that's how you measure cultural impact, is you're opening social platforms and seeing what content is being organically made about this thing. I also think it's great for a brand to come with a really strong vision of what they want, and examples is wonderful, but also have the humility and flexibility to hear what the creator wants to do and truly meet in the middle.
But it's all about trust. I think there's so much in this space about like brand safety, about control. I wish we could get rid of those 3 words. It's about trust. If you're gonna dance with someone, like dance with them, trust them, and co-create together.
When you think about the authenticity of the moment, right, the engagement, the model and method that Jimmy has built for his channels is so unique, right? So naturally, as you're building a brand that's an expression of him, right? Keep in mind, this started as Mr. Beast's Feastables. Now most kids and adults will call it Feastables, right? It's evolved a little bit. You needed to pull on those strings as kind of being that connective tissue. What we have started to see is, right, while spectacle's cool and makes awesome content, there's also that point of like, I want more. I want to be able to touch it and feel it. So what we're starting to look at is not just an engagement metric through the content creators we leverage in the content they create, but the experiences they can make through their audiences to now have hundreds of small captive networks that are doing these small scale giveaways on stream, little things we can do together to make sure that products are there. The most refreshing thing I've had in the last 5 months, if you show me an ROI model, I don't want to talk to you. That's not it, right? There's a very unique tenet of this brand that has real emotional currency that I think brands wish they had gotten to with some of that deeper storytelling years ago, right? It gave you depth, texture, all the things that would make your brand matter. But with so many of these big brands under fire, there's a great talk from Scott Galloway back in 2017. He came to Nestle and gave it in 2018, where he warned all these big brands, private label's coming for you. It's gonna ruin your business, you are not ready. And I'm like new to the company, I'm looking around like, holy shit, what did I just sign up for, right? I think the only thing that saved a lot of them was the pandemic and kind of what rolled in and how it changed. But that cycle's back. And these creators are so iterative. They'll throw an idea out the window. If something doesn't work, change it, sprint to it.
And I think there's something about, we're coming up to 3,000 episodes at this point. We just started season 26, and we have this constant line of, we're getting this data back that we are throwing out there to the algorithm and throwing out to our audience. And the two of us and our team, and really our team is the one that is monitoring all this very closely at this point, is seeing what is connecting and what is working and what do we need to lean into. And it's this, so there wasn't really any particular moment. It's kind of constantly reading the tea leaves and anticipating what people will want, but also trying to lead the audience into the next thing that they will want. We don't want to become just subject to the whims of the audience, because they'll chew you up and spit you out. But you want to take them into account, but just be one step ahead of them and create the thing that they're about to start liking. And so that's sort of our philosophy, but you got to try a lot of things and see what clicks.
So I think that going forward, you guys really are disrupting how the television industry looks. And what do you see for the future of how YouTube is going to occupy that space?
Well, I think it's just, there's been a flattening of those things. Like the way that I'd watch a show on Max or on Netflix is the exact same way that I'd watch a show on YouTube. Like I don't really watch it on my phone or on a laptop or like any of the sort of the ways that you think about it. It's just all on my smart TV. And it's like at the end of the day, it's like an eyeballs and ears game. And even the length that we have, I always think about that, the short form vertical video, like that's so overserved. Like that's a massive portion of what gets put out there. And then you have these sort of like marathon length podcasts and even like TV shows, legacy TV shows now are like approaching a feature film type length. Trends can change, things can happen, but people rolling up with a blanket on the couch and watching something that invites a next episode in a binge but isn't like that great of a commitment, I think that's timeless and that'll never go out of style. So as much as things change and I expect things to change a lot in the behaviors of people and like what they're looking for, it's not that different from what I was looking for when I was a kid or what my dad was looking for when he was a kid. So I think like as much as things change, I'm kind of betting on things kind of staying the same because I don't have that many other ideas.
Yeah. But I think that the way our shows look compared to TV, no one is deciphering much of a difference anymore. I think the big difference is the level of connection, right? We always talk about content that connects.
From the beginning of our career as creators, we were working with brands. Even from back then, we would always make a point to talk to our audience about how making the connection between the content that they're watching and the brand that is helping enable it. So that, because we talk so much, we were able to use it to our advantage to slip in some education to our audience to align them on what we're trying to do. So when the sponsors come around, it's something that they celebrate.
I just want to thank you all for being here today. Give it up for Sean, Rhett, and Nick.
Thank you, for putting up with us.
Working for 48 years on every country on the planet with every kind of person from the most challenged to the most successful.
Wow, here we stand, Miami, here at Real Screen. We've gone from all the way out from Brand Storytelling Conference out in Utah where we were in the snow, but learning a lot about what's happening with brands, out here to Real Screen to see what networks and how distribution is starting to respond to where the funding streams have changed. As you can see, I got the patch on from the retina surgery. I've been called the pirate pitchman. I've said ARG more times than I can count. But I will tell you, when you walk in a room with a patch, all kinds of people want to talk to you. You become the most interesting man in the room. So as we've traveled across the country, here's what we've learned. Number one, brands are absolutely necessary in the future of creative and how it's going to go forward from content creation, right? What is absolutely true is a couple of key things. One, YouTube is the #1 streaming service out there, and it is the driver of a lot of content and where so many people consume it, right? Number two, linear networks aren't dead. Everybody stop freaking out. In fact, 56% of the content watched on YouTube is what? 21 minutes or longer. So linear content, longer form content is real, it's palatable, it's being watched. It's not going away in the way the canary is not there. What is changing is how that content gets made. Most importantly, what does this mean? This means we're in a new space and time where the rules are changed. Distribution's gonna happen different ways, content's gonna be produced different ways, and that's gonna mean the investments that networks are making, investments that big distribution groups are making, they're gonna make less plays and invest in less deals, but spend more on those deals. That means if you are a content creator, you can start driving your content to higher recognition points in different channels. Watch what happens this year in 2025 on YouTube. Watch how creator content starts to get on your main screen. Watch what's happening with Vizio. Watch what's happening with Samsung. Watch what's happening with Roku, with the content starting to flow into these places in a very different way.
That is the beat that I want to get out of here, is like,
every single one of these, if brands are looking to go beyond that 30-second spot, if they're looking to be integrated into shows, if they're looking to have social custom content created by the best production company in town, like, we can house and distribute that. And for us, we don't look at branded content as branded content. We look at it as original content that is powered by brands, full stop.
It really works when the brand comes in and wants to be organically tied to the themes, the ethos. They're doing it for brand lift overall, brand love, but they want the audience to say, oh my God, like, wow, Ally supports female entrepreneurs, right? Miller Lite supports women's sports. You want that sort of bigger brand lift and love and have them across every episode in a way that's really organic and meaningful and not so hyper-focused on a specific, like, tactical thing you're sticking on a table.
The fact that Brian runs Roku Originals and the fact that he was just speaking about brands, like, it says a lot that this is living with Roku Originals and not Roku brand, right? He said full stop earlier. And that,
Roku Originals does not exist without brands.
Right.
Full stop.
Love that. They're sophisticated and they realize that the success of the show is going to be success for the brand, and they're willing to have the more direct messaging in the ecosystem surrounding the show. So like the short form on their owned and operated platforms and social, and like that's where you could be more on the nose. But in terms of the authenticity and the organic nature, it comes from very early development conversations, getting brands in there so they feel like they're being heard, and they are, and then Hollywood writ large, like respecting them in the efforts. When we work with our brand clients, the main question that always gets asked after an activation, a campaign, a partnership is, does the audience feel better about the brand after the show, after the experience? Success, to me, looks like Roku is ecstatic with it. Hello Sunshine's really pleased with how they're doing and the work they're producing, and that Molson and Miller Lite wants to come back for another 20.
You guys know who I am. I'm Andy with Blue Water. We live in a split world. 1 foot always standing in advertising and marketing, and 1 foot standing in content. How do we become at a place where we start to navigate this space, and how do we help our clients and all of those out there struggling to figure out how to make their brand relevant? We've seen the success of it. We understand that organic content fed by top funnel advertising can drive engagement with a brand and create the new metrics of measurement. What's your brand loyalty? Obviously, what's your brand awareness? Are you testing your levels of engagement? What does long-term engagement with content mean for overall revenue? These are the questions that have to be asked and answered. And for those of us at Blue Water, we're helping our brands kind of navigate that space. What's absolutely true is what we thought was going to happen is happening. Now the question is, how does everybody respond? Hearing directly from Roku, hearing directly from YouTube, not having to guess or question, but have the direct ability to engage with them, to hear what Mr. Beast is doing with merchandising, when we know we've done it in the past. We've helped merchandise from the opposite end, like when we did Forged in Fire and took Forged in Fire and introduced product to it. We understand the brand integration and the monetization of it. The challenge is you have a whole group of producers who have never had to answer that question. And you have a whole group of programmers who have never worried about where the funding is coming from. Now we're at the combination. If you are a brand and you are out there saying, what do I do next? How do I engage customers? How do I engage consumers? How do I build my tribe? Like we've done with the brands we work with, right? Like Blackstones of the world. How do I engage my tribe? How do I build the energy of it? You have to be thinking about your content strategy. It doesn't have to be as obvious as you think. And we're not talking about brand insertion and programming. We're not talking about sponsorship. We're talking about real, authentic programming that fits around the culture of your brand. If you can do that, you will be leading the relevance of the next 10 years.
There's more of a mutual respect between Hollywood and brands today that didn't exist. Getting brands in Hollywood, production companies and distributors, talking at the earliest levels and understanding that they have foundational thematic alignment, meaning that the brand's ethos is similar and matches what the story is that's being told. Once that foundation is settled and set, then it's like, you know, having a good foundation of a great house or having a great screenplay becomes a great movie. Once that thematic alignment is there, then those conversations can really develop authentically and organically, and those conversations are happening more and more now.
So where do we go from here? What does 2025 mean for you? Brands are going to be more relevant. Your content matters for your brand. Are you building the base of content that you need to be successful long-term for your brand, for your product? You need to start thinking about the library. AI is having a huge effect. Just announced today, YouTube doing AI translations on the upload. Automatic AI language translations. Think about it for a minute. These are moves that we didn't think we'd see for quite some time. AI content moving faster. In 2025, there's opportunity all around us. For us at Blue Water, we're happy to live in the world between brand performance and brand content, because both of those areas matter. If you're doing it right, your performance efforts and your advertising efforts are driving your content efforts, and your content efforts are lowering your cost of acquisition. The future is incredible if we just activate it.
I mean, brands have always been a really important part of the ecosystem. They've just been pretty far removed by design from the creatives behind like all the TV shows and movies that you all watch and love. Gone are the days where, you know, you've got big media companies, you know, sitting in between creators and brand. We're seeing brands and creators developing really strong relationships, which ultimately is better for the viewer because it means that brands are showing up in really value-add, powerful kinds of ways.
Consumer expectations have really kind of forced brands to change the way that they market. In our research, we've seen like countless statistics and numbers and data around the expectations of consumers in terms of buying from a brand that shares their values, or the expectation around you know, sharing a mutual mission and purpose, wanting a brand that's actually going to help them sort of change the world. So those like are really exceptional expectations from consumers that have really put the pressure on brands to not just market their product, but to be able to create action.
They understand that the success of the series is going to be successful for the brand. So they don't need to be so heavy-handed in the branding of what I'd like to say the mothership, the episodes, the original content, and that like messaging could live in the ecosystem, like the social O&O around it, and that could be a little bit more heavy-handed. But brands do want the success of the series, and they know that if something is overtly branded, an audience is going to feel that and not feel the authenticity.
Big quote coming out of Roku.
I'm speaking on a panel tomorrow about a show we announced today, Women's Sports Now, in conjunction with Hello Sunshine, Publicis, and Miller Lite. We don't see it as branded content, we see it as original content where we can go beyond a 30-second spot. I will put my stake in the ground. That is the space we want to own.
Think about that for a minute. Roku saying, we're going to own the branded content space. The democratization of content is happening. Brands can enter it, creators can enter it. The gateway is no longer in the way. So follow us, catch up on what we're doing, because I promise you, brands are coming into the content world, and the content world is coming to brands. And funding is the reason. If you want to know how to do it, get with us at Blue Water. So many content creators from around the world in the unscripted space are here wondering, what's next? How you get your content out there? There are so many more partnerships out there to be happening right now, and I can't be more excited than I am right now. So here we are, Miami, wrapping up in this wonderful, beautiful place. It's no longer freezing in the snow. Although we did love Utah and we loved what happened in Sundance, what's happening right now in Miami is the next layer of it. From what the brand side sees to what the network side sees, we've closed the loop. If you want to know more, just private message me, call me, reach out to our team at Blue Water. We're happy to discuss what's coming next. And if you don't want to know more, I'll be seeing ya.